Story time on the time. I got scammed with this prom dress. So I knew it was coming up to year 11 prom, and I knew I wanted a long, like, ball gown dress. So when I ordered this dress, I didn't just order it in a size, I got it, like, custom size. So I took all of my measurements thinking, oh, I'm gonna order this and it's literally going to be my size exactly. By now I'd waited a good few weeks and it hadn't arrived and it was getting pretty close to prom. One day I then came home from school and my mum wasn't home when I saw the dress hanging on the back of the door. It's safe to say it wasn't what I ordered. For starters, it was the wrong colour. It was orange and not ivory. I mean, it was the right length, which, considering I was pretty tall, I was quite impressed. But every other part of it did not fit. I mean, this is definitely not what I ordered. Like and follow to know what happened next.
So I had a dream and it was like really intense. So James Charles was there and he was like, "Hey sisters, come meet my sugar daddy." Honestly, James looked so snatched, but like his sugar daddy looked super shady. But I was like, whatever, get it girl. Then all of a sudden this Maserati pulled up and James hopped in, so I was just like, okay, bye. Then I woke up.
Here's part 2 on the prom dress scam. So by now it's a week before prom and I don't have an acceptable prom dress. By now I don't have time to worry about the company and I just needed a dress. So I went into town, I bought a prom dress for literally a fraction of the price of the main one and obviously went to prom. We'd tried contacting the company and they weren't cooperating at all, claiming it was our fault that we got the measurements wrong and that they weren't going to refund us. Bearing in mind this dress was over £200, so obviously we were determined to get a refund, but they were not playing ball. In the end, we got a charge back from the bank and we did get our money back, but I mean, I was pretty sad that I didn't get to wear that prom dress to prom, but I still got prom queen runner-up, so yeah. But if I could go back and do it all again, I'd have that dress and I'd have it fit and in the right colour.
I made my teacher cry. Story time. When I was in 2nd grade, I had this teacher and she was the devil, and we're gonna name her Miss Jackson. And the reason I call her a devil is because she would say really mean things to me to my face. She would be like, "Ty, stop talking like that, you sound like a little girl." Or, "Your favorite color can't be pink, you have to choose one of the boy colors." And since I was so young, I didn't understand how serious these things were and I didn't know I can get her in trouble. And I would go home sad like every single day. Eventually my mom noticed and she asked me what was wrong. So I told her some of the things that Miss Jackson would say to me and my mom was mad. And my mom was like, "The next time she says something to you, say something rude back, and if you get in trouble, I'll handle her from there." So I was like, okay, I'll do it. Now, Miss Jackson was a heavy lady, so I knew if I said something rude to her, it would be about her weight. Though we don't body shame around here. We don't do that, okay? So I'm in school eating lunch with my friends who happen to be girls, and Miss Jackson comes up to me and she's like, "Shouldn't you be eating with the boys?" So I looked at her and I was like, "Shouldn't you be eating a salad?" And the lunchroom started laughing and then she started crying.
Story time. So when I was in elementary school, there was this girl who was mean to me all throughout elementary school, and in 5th grade, she was still mean to me. At that point, me and her were in the same after-school daycare together. At this after-school daycare, you were allowed to go onto the computers every day and do whatever you wanted to do. So, me and my friends used that time to make a secret language so that this girl would not know what we were talking about, and then we printed it out. Me and my friends only used this language amongst each other. This girl found out about it and she did the exact same thing, except she didn't really have any friends, so it didn't really matter. One day when I went onto a computer, this girl forgot to log out and I could see her whole secret language list. But I was just going to log out of her account because I didn't really care. Right when I was about to log out of her account, she walked behind me and said I hacked into her account. Like, bro, what 5th grader knows how to hack? Anyway, we then went downstairs and she tried to get me in trouble. The teacher told her to go print out what I was supposedly going to send to myself. When she went to go print it out, she also sent it to me to make it look like I sent it to myself. Smart, but not very smart. Because of the timestamp on it, I showed the teacher that that was when I was downstairs with the teacher. So I didn't get in trouble, but she did.
This is what they meant when they said, "Don't talk to strangers." In the early 1900s, a 10-year-old boy was playing in the woods when a tall man appeared and asked if he wanted to come back to his cabin for dinner. Totally caught off guard, the boy reluctantly agrees and begins walking. When they get to the cabin, the boy is relieved when he sees Paul, a family friend, sitting on the porch, so the boy happily goes inside. After they eat, the boy says thank you to the strange tall man, says bye to Paul, and then he leaves. He had only walked a few steps when he sees his family, along with Paul, running up the path towards him, frantically asking if he was okay. Confused, the boy says, "I'm just fine," and he looks at Paul and he's like, "Why didn't you tell them I was with you at the cabin?" And he points over his shoulder. Paul glances over the boy's shoulder and then narrows his eyes and says, "You were kidnapped by a cult 3 days ago. No one's seen you." Terrified, the boy turns around to look at the cabin he just came from, and it's gone. All he sees is a dark forest that stretches for miles.
So back in 2018, I was working in an Italian restaurant. One evening we had quite a big party come in, and they sat in our function room. It was a birthday or something, and obviously everybody was drinking, and towards the end of the night people were getting like quite drunk. So it's got to the point where I'm clearing plates and I'm like, "Oh, is everything okay with your food?" And this guy was like, "Everybody stack up your plates and pass it on to the lovely young girl." And bearing in mind I'm 18 at the time. So this guy was being really helpful, like really helpful. And after I'd cleared the table, which took a couple of trips, he came to the bar for a drink. So he orders his drink and he was like, "Oh, like, you're really pretty." And I was like, "Oh, thanks," sort of brushed it off as if it was nothing. So by now they were leaving and this guy was following me around. I was like, "Are you okay?" And he was like, "Yeah, could I get your number?" And I was like, "Oh, just a minute, I'm just clearing these glasses, I'll talk to you in a minute." There's way more to this, so like for part 2. Toxic friendship group story time. So I'd been with my boyfriend for a couple of months and he was going on holiday with his friendship group and somebody dropped out, so he was like, "Oh, do you want to come?" I'd met some of the friends before when I first met him and I actually thought they were quite nice, but I hadn't met the girls yet. So my boyfriend messaged the chat and was like, "If there's a space, is it okay if Georgie comes?" The lads were like, "Yeah, that's fine," and the girls were like, "We don't know her." My boyfriend's just arrived whilst I'm doing the story time and I'm literally bitching about his friends. Anyway, so the lads in the group chat were like, "Why don't we all go to Spoons and get to know her?" The girls respond with, "We want to meet her alone." So obviously then I'm on high alert at the fact they won't meet me with anybody else, but I still agreed to meet them. We met for all of about 20 minutes, we got on quite well, went on the holiday, and since the holiday we literally don't talk to each other, we're still in the group chat, and that's literally it. Like for another story time.
Yes, this really did happen. In 2015, a man woke up to a strange post-it note sitting on his desk. On it was a to-do list that he didn't recognize in handwriting that didn't look like his. Since he was up late the night before doing some work, he assumed he must have written out the list when he was half asleep and kind of forgot about it, so he just crumples it up and throws it away. 2 weeks later, he wakes up to dozens of these post-it notes all over his wall, and they're all blank except for one that, in the same weird handwriting, says, "Our landlord isn't letting me talk to you." Now feeling totally freaked out that some crazy person is crawling around his apartment at night, he starts looking for signs of a break-in, but there aren't any. Instead of calling the police, he shares his experience on Reddit asking for help, and one user's comment literally saves his life. Turns out the man was writing the notes to himself and then forgetting, because his brain was slowly dying due to a carbon monoxide leak that was only discovered because a user suggested he install a detector.
Story time. I am a beauty school dropout. You're probably like, "Oh, that explains a lot." So I have always known that I wanted to work in the beauty industry and that I wanted to work with people. So after graduating high school when I was 16, I enrolled in a local beauty school in 2018. I started it in the fall of that year and I absolutely loved it. Well, a little while after I started, things started to get really fishy. Like one day I walked into school and I was walking down the hallways and it was like a ghost town. All of the admissions counselors and all of the financial aid counselors had been let go and all of their offices were empty. We received a letter that day that stated the school would close exactly 1 year from that date, and they made a sign promising that we wouldn't unenroll until then, so they could still get their money from us. I didn't sign the paper. I just had this feeling that they were gonna do us dirty. So I left and I never walked through those doors again. Not long after that, they shut their doors.
This is why you should always change your locks. In 2017, a college girl woke up from a nightmare drenched in sweat and decided to rinse off before going back to sleep. She propped her phone on a shelf, turned on some music, and then hopped in the shower. A few minutes later, she reaches for her phone to change the song, but stops suddenly. Reflected on her phone's screen was a person standing in the middle of her bathroom facing the shower. She somehow kept her composure, turned the water to scalding hot, and then ripped open the curtain and sprayed the intruder in the face. As they howled in pain, she ran past them to her kitchen to get her butcher's knife. In a panic, she can't find her knife, so she just runs out of the apartment and calls the police. The police go in and come out with a crazy-looking woman in handcuffs. One of the officers comes over to the girl and says she used to live here and she had copies of your keys. Then he pauses and looks down and brings up a clear evidence bag that contained her butcher's knife, and he says, "Looks like she wanted her apartment back."
And another worst parts of my high school experience, makeup story time. Let's go.
So basically it was one of the popular girls' birthday. She had an older sister, her mom was...
Story time! So yesterday my friends and I all went to the fair and there were 6 of us in total. And none of us wanted to have to worry about driving there and parking, so we just Ubered instead. So we left the fair around 11:15 and we walked to a nearby shopping center where the Uber picked us up about 10 minutes late. We ended up leaving at 11:30. We get in the Uber, the man says hello, and we head home the normal way. Everything's fine. And my parents don't like when I Uber, so they were tracking me on Life 360 from the moment I got in the car. After about 10 minutes in, I get a text from my mom, and it said, "Where are you?" I look up from my phone and I realize I have no idea where we are, and Ubers know their directions, they know how to take you home. We were 20 minutes out of the way. So I'm terrified. My mom's texting me nonstop, literally about to call the police. I'm gonna run out of time, but posting part 2 today. Okay, back to the Uber story. Our parents are freaking out, we're texting each other in our group chat so he doesn't hear us. Also, while this is all happening, he wasn't talking to us, but he had an earbud in and he was talking to someone on the phone really quietly. It was super creepy. My mom starts calling me again and he hears the ring. And one of my friends pulled up on her phone the directions to get home, which he also heard, so he knew that we thought something was off. After a little while longer, we finally know where we are, so we feel a little bit better. We were getting really close to the turn that goes into my friend's neighborhood, and we were thinking, if he doesn't make this turn, we're screwed. Thank goodness.
Hope you guys liked this video and found it helpful. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. It does help support us, and let's know what videos you guys want to see.